Hi everybody, Russ and my Hammers 11. Hope you're safe and well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell icon so you're made aware of any time we put new content on. As always, we'd like to thank our channel sponsors, Untuck It. Check them out in the description below. Black Friday deals and stuff if you want to get a bit of nice clobber for you or your old man for Christmas. Check them out. Lots of Black Friday deals and stuff like that coming up. We've got another episode of Russ's Rambles where we sort of do more generic football, not West Ham related, and we try and interview people from all over football, really. And one area which I think we don't talk enough about in terms of football as a community is referees, but from the personal perspective, rather than shouting at the referee, the actual referee themselves, because they are people themselves, aren't they, Dan? And that's why we've got Dan Ricketts. I used to go to school with Dan, but Dan was until recently a grassroots amateur referee in football, and actually so much that he changed the size, the shape of the ball, and became a rugby referee as well. And we'll talk about why that is and stuff like that in a bit. But until recently, Dan was a referee as well. So we'll ask why he's no longer a football referee as well. Anyway, how are you, Dan? Haven't chatted for years. How are you, man?
I know, yeah. I mean, I realised it was when you invited me to do it. I thought it was 2020. It's been about 20 years probably since we actually had a conversation, because that's when you finished school.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, the last half of my life is almost half of my life. Yeah, and now I'm a school teacher. I've been doing that since I left uni. And then took up football refereeing. I mean, it would have been must have been about 7 years ago, I suppose. When, like I say, didn't do it for all that long. Did it for about 4 years, and then decided to chase people who like odd shaped balls around the pitch instead, including women as well, which is even more interesting sometimes.
Oh, fantastic! And how as a teacher, obviously, how is everything with the weird 2.0 lockdown restriction things?
Yeah, it's funny. And I did another podcast, a totally different subject, of gardening. Would you believe? Because I do a lot of that at school. And the chap who's on that, also another Essex guy, he said, "What's the plan?" And this was back in August. I said, "I've got absolutely no idea." Went back in the start of September, and it's just been we've had a plan and try to stick to it as much as we can. In my school, we were pretty lucky. We only had to start sending kids home this month. Some schools have shut, before that, or lost whole year groups. We did pretty well, I think, to get to about the middle of October before we started losing a year group. But some schools have really found it really tough. But I'm part of quite a big trust, and we've got a group of schools, and they all kind of look after each other as much as they can. So yeah, it's been weird and hard, and children are kind of not getting to do anywhere near the range of stuff they'd like to do. But hopefully into the new year we'll start to see a little bit of a change in that aspect of stuff. So who knows?
Yeah, sure. But also, I think children are just, maybe the younger children rather than the older children, they're so not malleable, that's the wrong word, but they so just adapt to the situation. They're like chameleons, really. It's like my daughter, she's 8, and considering in the last almost a year, he's 10 months or something like that it's all happened, she's so like water for ducks back, you know what I mean? Where me and my wife are like, what? Okay, this is what? Okay, we can't do this. We got to wear a mask, and we got, it's like, she's like, oh yeah, we got to wash your, wash your hands, and and kids are like that, aren't they? They're so resilient.
My daughter's just turned 9. Actually, she's only a year older than yours, and I think I know schools have had to make sure that the thing that kids are is happy. My daughter's school's been really good at that, and like you say, they just make sure that they get them into school and they're happy to be there, because it could be an awful lot worse. The last thing you want is kids not wanting to come to school. At the minute, you want them in school because it's one of the safest places they can be for most of them. So you want them in school.
And exactly, I mean, you've got the the things like how the kids have adapted to. I mean, to be honest, same as your daughter as well. They've lived their whole life in the internet age. So it is FaceTime. It is not Zoom. I didn't Zoom when they were little kids, but it was always YouTube. So they've always learned online learning and communicating online. It's the older people who are obviously more having issues at the moment, because obviously they used to communicating one-to-one or stuff like that. So it's like we've had, you probably had it with your daughter as well, we've had like Zoom birthday parties and people like that, and we had like one was brilliant the other day, like the entertainer who did it all on Zoom and just did his old stick, his whole act, but in Zoom, and made the kids run around doing scavenger hunts and finding.
Yeah, we had one of those. Yeah.
Brilliant, so brilliant. Although I had one where he was like, right, they had to find all these things like a scarf and a pillow, and then they had to find a DVD.
We'd be all right. We like having the discs, but imagine some houses wouldn't have any.
I was walking around like, I haven't got a DVD. And Joe's like, Flo's like, what's the DVD? The disky thing, yeah. We've got Netflix, Daddy. I know we've got Netflix, Florence.
Just hold up the Xbox or something.
Yeah, that's what I did. She had like a I had like a FIFA one, like FIFA 19 or 80, which used to come on disc.
Yeah.
And she had it back to front. I was hopeful that the entertainer didn't ask what was on the DVD. You know what I mean? But yeah. Could you imagine? I've said it before. Could you imagine if we had to do lockdown when like we were like teenagers?
Oh God!
You know,
I mean,
no Netflix.
I think we'd have all been out. Well, we wouldn't have. Well, I don't know what we'd have done because we'd have been out all the time. Or I don't know. I think I was a bit of a geek, so I'd stayed home and played computer games the whole time. But some people, it would have been, just I can't. Yeah, it doesn't bear thinking about really.
No, it would have been like you would have had no Netflix really.
No. Or dial-up internet. I remember we joked about this at school. Well, yeah, you were still on dial-up internet. You might have had broadband if you were lucky, but
you might have had, but you wouldn't have had a decent phone. You'd have had Nokia 3310, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So you'd be playing some good Snake and Tetris.
And I think we'd have done seasons and seasons of Championship Manager as well. I think a lot of us.
Yes, yeah, Championship Manager. Yeah, a lot of FIFA, a lot of Championship Manager, and little else. I mean, the first one was alright. The first one, the weather was beautiful, but obviously now, you only get like 10 hours a day, like if that. I don't know how many hours, but it's a lot. It seems a lot. It's weirder. Although the other day, as I said to you before we started, I went to a garden centre today. Yeah. That's how I roll. We went to a garden centre.
I was at Wicks yesterday. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and we was outside for like an hour and a bit to get into a garden centre. It's like, and like looking in the queue, it wasn't like families but it was all like teenagers waiting to get into the. It was almost like they were clucking for shopping, and it's like the only places they could go to were garden centres or Wicks, or B&Q. It's mental, absolutely mental. And fair play to them. They were proper like stringent on face masks and stuff when they came in. If everyone didn't, they might be queuing up for an hour, and if they said, I haven't got a face mask, all right, you either buy one or you go back to or you get out. It's like, all right, fair play.
I think I've worked out that all the stores I've been into, if they've got someone at the door, they put someone really fussy on the door who doesn't mind getting stroppy with people.
Yes.
Because you don't need someone wandering about inside who's not following the rules. So, and I like rules, as you can imagine. So, in the roles I like to play when I'm not at school. So,
you're just painting a picture of yourself, Daniel. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I was trying to be all personable with referees, and there you go. But
we've got to have rules. As my wife would say, rules make the fun safe. I think that's her favourite remark. She'll hate me for saying that, but rules make the fun safe.
I can imagine you saying that before you kick off, right, guys? Okay. At the end of the day, rules make fun safe.
All these huge blokes now when I do rugby, like rules make the fun safe, and they're like, yeah, sure, sir, and then they just kick the ball and just ignore me for the next 80 minutes. So.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about refereeing. Right. Why did you get into it, Dan? Why did you think about becoming a referee, man?
So I came to it obviously really late. I didn't start refereeing until I was 30, about 30ish, and I probably should have done it a lot sooner because. I was thinking back to what I was like at school. I was pretty terrible at football at school. I couldn't play on pitch because I just was useless. I used to play in goal, but there was always somebody better than me at school who was always a bit more brave or a bit more nuts or something. Basically, it was just better at goal than me. So I remember playing a couple of games I played for school. I was always on the bench, whether it was rugby or if it was football. I always seemed to be on the subs bench. So I used to just take the flag and run the line to keep warm, and then the same trend carried on when I was after uni, and was always at the bench warmer for the little club I played for on a Saturday morning, and was always running with a flag. And I thought I should have, thinking back to then, I thought I should have picked up a whistle a lot sooner. But Yeah, it was. I don't know. When I was at school, I was very quite thin-skinned, so I think some people were like, you shouldn't be a ref because, and if anyone shouts at you, you're just going to probably just cry and walk off, which might not have been far from the truth. But I suppose as you get older, you get a little bit more kind of so whatish, don't you? You don't care quite as much what people say sometimes. And just decided. I think because I was a primary school teacher. I now work in with older kids, and I used to run the school football team because I was the only man at school. So they said, "Here, you can run the school football team," and I was refereeing a match. And then I remember there was this. It was a couple of minutes in, and one of my lads was bombing up the touchline with the ball, and this kid from the other team came over, and I heard the crack as he basically kicked him on the shins. And didn't break his leg, but this horrible noise. And I blew the whistle, and I remember very clearly saying, "If you do that again, you're off." And he wasn't even one of my kids. And I thought, that wasn't very nice. So then I actually straight away after that looked into refereeing course. I thought, I want to do this properly. I want to be nice. I don't want to shout at kids. I want to know if I'm doing it properly and learn the rules. So I did the course. My wife bought me a very nice referee kit as like a Christmas present to say, yes, you're allowed to do a referee's course and disappear off for a few hours every Saturday.
Yeah.
But then just went from there, basically. Yeah, did the course with Essex FA, which took about, I think it was 2 weeks, 2 weekends, and then went off and did games and went from there, basically.
Sure. Wow. And obviously in terms of the level you were sort of you were refereeing at, what was sort of the level, so to speak?
I didn't referee for very long. So I didn't progress very far. I was refereeing what you would call, I think it's now level 7. So that's basically like the bottom tier as an adult referee. So you can referee adults on a Sunday morning, or sort of youth and kids games and stuff like that. I didn't really. I know I was a bit old to push any further, and I knew that if you want to push on, you've got to do adult matches. You've got to do sort of so many in the season. It's got to be adult games. And I wasn't really, you hear a lot of horror stories about what adult football's like. And there's been stuff in the news recently. There was a ref who got punched in the face. That ended up on the BBC.
Yeah.
And the guy got like he got a 10-year ban, and then they got reduced to 5 years. And in fact, the guy who taught me to learn to drive, it was a football ref. It was a Sunday league ref locally, and he told me this horror story about his last game was when some guy had insulted him. So he just jumped. So he, as the ref, jumped on this bloke and punched him in the face. Oh. And that was his last ever game. And I thought, I don't think I can quite deal with that somehow. I don't think, I don't know about it. Did a few adult games, but it's 100 miles an hour. Like, it's really unpredictable, adult football. And that sort of, and you never quite know what the players are going to do. And if you ask them, are you going to do, you're going to kick it long? Are you going to play long ball? Are you going to play short? So I know what to do. They're like, I'm not going to tell you. So I just don't expect the referee to be interested in that sort of stuff. So you just end up running around like an absolute lunatic if you try and keep up. Or you become one of those refs who's like the centre circle ref and just sort of stands and can deliver his judgments from half a mile away, but seems to get it right most of the time. That wasn't me. I was always the one that ran around and was absolutely busting the gut after about 10 minutes and felt like I was ready to go home.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't. I did lots of kids matches, which is interesting to say the very least, because they all think it's the World Cup. They don't care if they're like 10 or if they're 110. Every game is like a World Cup final. Yeah, for them and their parents. Yes. And it's quite stressful.
And obviously we know you mentioned at the beginning you're no longer a football referee. Was it the abuse? Was it the way they spoke? Was it, or that sort of you thought, I'm going to go to an egg ball now?
Yeah, it was a combination of things. Like, so I got into the rugby refereeing. It was the World Cup. Was it 2015? 5 years ago, there was a World Cup, and I watched that. I thought, that looks like that could be interesting. I'll give that a go as well. And it was only like the course of rugby is only 50 quid, so I did that. Yeah. But I'll do both. And if I'm terrible at rugby refereeing, because it's it looks quite tricky, then I'll just go back to football and I'll see how it goes. But I think the combination was, you talk about the player behaviour, or like the whole ethos of football, with the players, the fans, and the coaches. Yeah, the way that they behave and they communicate to a ref isn't, it's just like it is on a Premier League game on the telly.
Sure.
It's not very friendly most of the time. rugby players are always like, "Good morning, sir. How are you, sir? Yes,
Yeah.
please, sir. He's just punched me in the face. What are you going to do about it, sir?" And that's about the level you get at. It's kind of that's about as in your face as they get. And I was thinking and I remember there was a game, and it was under 10s, an under 10s football match on a Saturday morning. Nice day, lovely weather like it was early this afternoon. And I remember I was following the ball up and an attack, and this lad comes across, powerful slide tackle, wipes the player up, and he gets the ball, plays the ball, knocks it away. And I hear, he's been foul, effing and jeffing from the touchline. So I play on, ball goes out. And then I sort of had a rough idea where it was coming from. And I just said to the parents, I just called out, I said, "This is an under 10s game. Control your language." And this voice went, "Oh, calm down, ref, it's only a match." And I was like, right. And I was like, "This is getting ridiculous." And it got to that point where you walk off a football pitch and I wasn't enjoying it. I was getting some money. You get money at the end of it, but I wasn't enjoying it anymore. So I thought I'll take a break from the football, stick with the rugby. And I've not really gone back. But more and more people, I've had 3 or 4 people since the start of the season who've asked me to ref games. And I've had to say I'm not doing football anymore. I'm not registered anymore. I don't quite know where that leaves you. In rugby, you can't. I don't think it's different. But in football, you can get anyone to ref a game. And you can just ask any parent who's willing to run around and blow the whistle. To do it. Literally anybody. You haven't got to done a course or anything like that. Provided you sort of say yes, I'll do it. You can do it. And I don't want to go back. Don't want to go back to it. No offense. Football's a brilliant sport. Football's fantastic. I mean, it's I would say out of the two, it's more exciting than rugby to watch. Because you never know what's going to happen. It's totally unpredictable until the ball until the ball's over the line and in the net. You don't know if it's a goal or not. Whereas in rugby,
even now, Dan,
when something's coming in rugby.
Yeah, and even now you don't know if the ball's over the line, if it's a goal or not. You've got to wait for 10 seconds for VAR.
You've got to wait 10 seconds for the VAR thing. Yeah, and that's that could be a whole other podcast, couldn't it? And the technology of football, and they got there was one that went over the line. I can't remember, where is it? Was it Villa or somewhere? The ball crossed the line.
Season, it was Villa.
And it was clearly over, and they showed in the replays it was over, but the watch had malfunctioned or something, or the Hawkeye had malfunctioned, so he didn't give it.
It doesn't help themselves, does it? It doesn't help themselves, because you think, particularly being like, and it was funny as well, because wasn't it? It was the first game back from lockdown, wasn't it? It was like Operation Restart, Project Restart, and it was like 100 days have passed about Premier League football. They still haven't figured out VAR, But I always remember the first game of that season. Every Premier League game had this little video I think it was about a 2-minute clip, and it had Alan Shearer was narrating it, and he was basically talking about what VAR is, and it was almost like like Ladybird's book to VAR, and it was really good, but only showed it once, and they never really showed it like ever again. You think surely you'd have done it for like 5 or 6 games, so people got used to it about where it can and where it can't be used, and even now people still although they're starting to use the screen more, aren't they? So the monitor or the pitch side monitor, which seems to make more sense than it ever did. It was been there for about half a season or a season and a half already before anyone started using it, but it's just. I mean, I don't think they've helped themselves out really until, even now, it's like there was the one the other day. Was it the Bamford one where he got offside for pointing?
I know. Yeah. And then I had to look at it because I don't keep totally up to date on football laws, and they change a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had to go on the website, the IFAB, as it is, they're the ones who do the laws on the website, and I didn't realise that handball now only extends to about halfway up the upper arm. Level with the armpit. So the fact that he'd stuck his arm out and this 4 inches of upper arm was there, because you can play the ball and score technically with that. You can be offside. I'm sure if we looked back over the course of the season, there'd be a goal that had been ruled out because the ball had hit the top part of a player's arm, and they've deemed that he's handballed it and then he scored. I'm sure if they looked back, they'd find one.
Oh yes, it's how they retrospectively.
It's really frustrating. I think that's the way. It's confusing for people to watch when they see that inconsistency.
It's confusing. I mean, I thought I was all for it being brought in. I just thought it was needed. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
the sophistication of technology, and and sort of the amount of money in football, and how it can be all. A team could end up being promoted into the Premier League based on a decision from one man. If there was a playoff final, or someone got into the Champions League because someone disallowed a goal, and you've got the technology. I mean, cricket's been using it for years. Tennis has been using it. Rugby's been using it for TKO. That, I mean,
the TMO,
the TMO.
I mean,
that's brilliant. How they
and I
use
think
it.
when VAR's been it's only the second season, isn't it?
Season, yeah.
And I think rugby still has it makes tweaks, they make changes, and they've been doing it for over a decade. And there was someone on Twitter earlier on. I was replying to some comments, and they said, "Oh, how long do you think we're going to need? It should be working by now." I said, "It will take years."
Yeah.
You bring in a massive, and this is it's one of the biggest. It's the biggest change to football.
Yeah.
Since they changed the pass back law, I can imagine. One of the most things I can think of, when goalies couldn't pick the ball up after about 1992 or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because that was killing the game, and they give it a kick ball back to the goal and he'd lump it up the pitch. I used to love that. I remember when they took out pass back, you used to see loads of little goalies who got the ball rolling back towards them, and they just freak out and thump it all over the place. But I think, like you said, like cricket and rugby, sports like that, because you've got natural stoppages. Like you can't. I thought that, and a great example of it would have been. I was thinking about this. Remember World Cup '98 when England were playing extra time against Argentina, and Sol Campbell scored. Well, he scored from a corner. He thought he'd scored. He went charging up the pitch, celebrating. They thought, "Yes, goal!" And then suddenly, I forget which commentator was like, "Oh no, it's a free kick, and Argentina are on the attack." So from like two seconds of, we think we scored, ref's gone, no, free kick, Argentina goal, quick. Let's take it quick, and we're off up the pitch. And then David Seaman manages to palm it behind. There's a corner at the other end, and that was about 10 seconds. If Argentina had tried to take it quickly, and the ref said, no, VAR, you can imagine the trouble. And that's the thing with football. You can play. You've got a 90-minute match, but it can go on. It can be non-stop, can't it? Almost. Quick throw-ins, quick free kicks. So that's how you want to play it. Whereas in rugby, I will do it, and I'll get shot for saying it. But sometimes, if I'm a little bit out of puff because it's been a bit end to end, and they've decided to kick it up and down quite a lot, I'll find a way to slow the game down a little bit so that I can recover. So I'll just hang on a minute, and all that plays. You're injured. Take a knee, or we'll just do something to slow it down a little bit. Whereas in football, you can't do that. That's
no,
just
you're
really
right.
naughty.
Yeah.
And the players in rugby appreciate a bit of a breather sometimes, but they'll get shot by the players now as well. But in football, sometimes everyone wants to get on with it, and no one wants to stand around waiting. And I can only imagine the chaos that might ensue if the VAR was put up on the big screen in the Olympic Stadium. Oh, sorry, what's it? What at the West Ham Stadium? I forget.
The London Stadium.
London Stadium. That's the one. I think you go to a rugby game. They don't do it as much now as they used to, but they used to put up the TMO on the big screen. You could see, and you could probably, if you had you can get the ref mic as well. You can hear what the ref's saying, and you can listen to their conversation. And I learned loads from that. You hear, what they're talking about.
You do, yeah.
But in football, when you imagine what it would be X-rated, wouldn't it, in most football matches? But if you put up on the big screen in front of 50,000 West Ham fans, and it was a decision going against West Ham, I think it would be.
Yeah, I mean, we have to.
Tricky.
I think the rules are. I think the rules are now that if we, when the decision's been made, then that can be shown, the clip.
Right.
So the idea is, for example, I don't know, it usually happens,
a
penalty
foul
or whatever, or an offside or whatever, for example. And once it's been given as offside, it will then be shown on the screen. So people will see it. So that's the way it happens now. Before that, we couldn't put anything pretentious up, anything, because obviously, then you'd look at it, because obviously there was no VAR, there was no comeback. So it might have been the handball or whatever, or foul. We wouldn't be able to show it on the screen.
Because there was one, wasn't there, where was it? I forget which club it was, maybe Everton or someone, and they put this was before VAR, but they put a replay up I think they said they did it by accident, but they played a replay of a foul on a player or something, or a penalty that wasn't given, and they got a big rap across the knuckles. But the fans went absolutely berserk because they were obviously, it was like, yeah, it should have been a penalty, but too bad. But they all went absolutely mental. And they got some huge fine, which was like bigger than like a player getting a 5-match ban or something like this. It was, and they went, because football, that's the culture. That's the other thing. I was thinking, like, if you have a stoppage in a rugby match, everyone just stands there as a chat and carries on.
Well, it's the assumption, isn't it?
You stand there, you drink beer or whatever. You enjoy it. But in football, obviously, there's no alcohol inside the stadium, is there? There's no alcohol in the seats and promoting most grounds, from what I understand. So all the fans are all sitting there waiting, thinking, right, can we get a move on? I want to get on with the game. I'm bored.
Yeah.
And if it goes badly for your side, you're going to get pretty annoyed.
That's the thing. You're right. I mean, it's like something like rugby. Say if something goes to the video ref, it could be easily like 2 minutes. You know, and you'll see on the telly, it being the guys rewinding it to see if the ball's been put down or he's lost control of the ball, and it's part and parcel of the game now, isn't it? Or same with cricket as well. Cricket, it's like they go back to the nicometer and stuff like that, and it's part of the game. But obviously in cricket, and he said in rugby, there are and tennis, there's natural breaks, isn't there, between games, or in between, when it gets kicked off and setting up for scrum, and it's get reset and scrum and reset or a line out or whatever. And so it's more suited towards that sort of natural break. We're here in football, it's not. It has to be within, so the ball basically has to be kicked out before it can go.
Has to be thumped into rows end of the stand or something like that for you. And even then, because you've got in professional football, you've got other balls. You just throw another ball in. So if you're the home team and you're chasing a goal to get a point or get a win or whatever, you don't really want to wait for something that might go against you. So whether they need to bring in that whole like challenge system like they have in tennis and cricket, they brought in that kind of you've got 2 challenges rule.
That to me
so a side can say,
obvious.
Right, fine, we don't care, just crack on.
You're right.
And then it's on the team, it's on the players, I suppose, to make that decision if they want to review it or not.
I think there's a real. I think that should be something that people look into, because I just think or particularly from the it's like maybe not the skipper, but maybe the manager. The manager can, as you said, like 2 challenges a game or one each half, and then the ball stops in the same way that if there's a head injury, the game stops, doesn't it? It's the same principle, really. And you've got the 4th official there, and so it just says, no, challenge that. Quick look.
Stop.
Nah, carry on. That's it. You've lost your challenge, and then if there's a contentious one, it's your own fault, and it's how you play them.
Well, things like from rugby, what I'll do sometimes, you get a captain who, because you only talk to the captain in rugby.
Yes.
And they're, and the players want to ask you something, you just say, talk to your captain, and then they can either bring them over as well if they don't understand what they're trying to say or something like that. But I always say to them, talk to me when it's your ball. So if you've won the ball in some situation, if the next thing that's going to happen is going to be for you, come and talk to me then. Don't trot over and you want to slow down the opposition. So you can, if you're on the attack, then you don't want to go quick in a football match. You can stop and challenge a decision. So it's a penalty. It's come down the other end. You won the ball back. You can say, right, I want to have a look at that. I don't know, and that might be one way of doing it, but because, like you say, it's the pace of football, the speed that it's played at. You can't just put the brakes on and say, let's go and have a look at a video for 2 minutes and do. There was one. It flashed up. I think it was an old one. So someone said, I'm still cross about this. And it must have been Wolves against Tottenham or someone like this. Harry Kane gets knocked over in the area. The player who tackles him basically falls over and then falls against him and takes him down. And it should have been a penalty. And it goes to VAR, and they replay it about 30 times. They're saying this collision, collision. And then it's still not a penalty. And all the players are like, are you sure? And it was Mike Dean, he's an absolute legend. I think he's hilarious. He's just the most hilarious football referee I've ever watched. And he says, no, just carry on. And I love the way Mike did. He just walks off. He's like his chin up, and he kind of looked like, no, you all smell. I'm off later. And he just trots back off on the pitch. But you've got to be quick. I think they've got to get the VAR to be quicker. Because you can't. Because it's the level of patience that maybe you don't expect. but it kills the speed of the game as well, and then that could
It
probably
does.
lead to cramp and all this sort of stuff as well. I don't know. So
Yeah.
who knows? Yeah.
Well, it's like you got the big debate at the moment, isn't it? It's whether to go to 5 subs now again.
Yeah.
And there's obviously contention in both, camps. I mean, all across Europe go to 5 subs now, but we don't. I'm not really fussed, to be honest. I think it's quite interesting. I mean, I always been in sort of the camp of, going to 5 subs, and you're favouring the teams with the better squads, like the Man Cities and the Chelseas. But then
You've
they're
got like
playing
40 players to pick from on
but they're
stuff like
playing
this.
more games, so
Yeah.
but then it's because they're successful, they're playing more games. So it's like, well, fair play, that's the. But it might mean also that teams who might get into Europe, like we used to, like West Ham Cup, got into Europe, and then sort of like felt, and then didn't really be asked of it because we've got to make sure to stay up. So it's sort of like, it might mean that the teams who are qualifying for Europe in the earlier stages might actually have more of a go because they know they can have 5. I don't know, but I it's one of those things that, I think Martin Noble did something on TalkSport where he said it would even the playing field up with the bigger boys and the smaller clubs, but I don't know, we'll see. But it's like everything's contentious, and it's like they did the bloody water breaks. That was a new one. That was a fun one. Pointless water.
I remember
breaks,
doing that. I had that one game. It was a pre-season friendly, and it was a ladies' game, and we had water break. It was August, so they asked for water breaks, and it was actually against West Ham. Ironically, it was against West Ham ladies reserves. Harlow Town ladies against West Ham ladies reserves, and it was 35 minutes each way, or 40 minutes ladies game, and said, we'll have a water break after 20 minutes because it was about 30 degrees or something bonkers like that. And and then it got to about 18 minutes, and we had an injury, and then I went, water break, and I went, no, we'll do it in a minute. And then we got to 20 minutes, and the ball was just, it wouldn't go out of play. And then we got to about 29 minutes, and I went, would you want the water break now? And they went, do we have to? I'll just carry on. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. We went for about, there was ages where the ball wouldn't go out, and then suddenly they didn't want the water break, so we've only got 10 minutes left, don't do it now, we'll slow us all down, we're nearly half time. All right, we'll just get on with it.
That happened quite a bit last season. That 25 minutes, and it's like, we would have them at 29, 30 minutes because, as you said, the ball wouldn't go out of play. And it was very bizarre because it was like, so just walk off the pitch. Oh shit! Yeah, it's a water break. Let me play some music.
Whereas in rugby, there's a water break constantly. Every minute someone stops, these blokes will come charging on with water carriers, and they're all squirting water in, and then they're all off again. But then, I love it. It's a hilarious sight when it's the depth of winter, like in like January time, and the two sides set up for a scrum. And if it's under lights, you get it's like clouds of steam. And they're in this big huddle, and it looks mad. You've got these columns of steam rising off these players, and I don't think you see it anywhere else. And then they go into a massive scrum, and then there's even more of it rising up. And one time I just stood there watching it, and then the scrum half was like, "Can I put the ball in now?" I was like, "Oh yeah, go for it." Sorry, I just completely I was mesmerised by
just watching this sauna develop.
Sounds a little bit weird, but these 16 muscly blokes all grunting, which sounds really weird. And there's all this cloud of steam. I was like, this is really weird. And, hang on, I'm meant to be refereeing this, aren't I? Better tell you to get on with it. Yeah, let's go. Carry on.
Yeah, carry on. Is there any difference when you're between sort of refereeing the female game, apart from obviously you said like the female game to the male game? Is it very different?
In terms of when I referee, it's kind of. It hasn't got as many levels, so it's not. It's Sunday League rugby in a sense, Sunday League football equivalent. So they don't run. They're not as quick, I suppose. On the whole, they're not as fast. But I've had just as intense. And when they get cross, they get really cross. I think it was only about the second ladies game I'd ever done, and it was quite feisty. To start off with, and then all of a sudden. I heard, "You effing lady dog, do that again, and I'll effing knock you out." And then there was a thud, and the woman had kneed her. I think she basically kneed her in the face. She tackled her mate, and she didn't like it, so she basically kicked her. And I bottled it because I was like, what? I didn't see it. I could only guess. I was like, what was that? And this person sort of stood up in a bit of a daze.
Yeah.
I blew the whistle, and immediately I was like, they all know something's gone wrong here. But because I didn't see it, I was like, oh, I don't know what I can do. So I gave a penalty, like free kick, basically. But I didn't send her off. And it always goes through my mind before every game.
Yeah.
Don't let that happen again. If you see someone punch someone or kick someone, get rid of them. But I think I was only about my 5th or 6th game or something like that. And I was, still a bit wet behind the ears and didn't want to upset anyone. And I was probably being too nice to these ladies. But yeah, no, it's just as intense. Whatever. It's just the difference in pace. And the hardest ones to referee are kids, like teenagers. So I start from under 13s, 14s. And they're all like whippets. They're all ridiculously quick. But they don't tackle quite as well because they're still getting used to the collision of someone smashing into them. So regularly you'll be chasing kids who can run 100 meters in 12 seconds, and I'm not that quick. And they're bombing up and down the pitch all the time. Whereas in adult rugby, I can keep up, or I can be a bit quicker than them, which is quite nice. But yeah, youth rugby is a lot of it's like when I used to football. You find yourself absolutely tearing about all over the place and hoping for someone to do something so you can stop the game and have a breather. So yeah, otherwise it's just as intense. And they will beat the living daylights out of each other in the right way.
I know what you mean.
Whereas and when I think back to like football, it was much the same really. They would all be quite happy to kick 7 bells if they needed to. Whereas I remember when I did my course, there were 2 guys. There was two referees, and one of them was a real old timer. And he said, when I used to ref back in the 70s, players were smart. If someone stuck one on you, you waited a while until you watched till the ref wasn't looking, and then you stuck one back on them. He says, now these new footballers, they're not very bright, and someone will do something to them, and about 2 seconds later they'll wallop on one. And then the referee's looking, and he's saying, oh, maybe he's got a point in a way, I suppose. Sometimes players will get cross, and if the referee doesn't react straight away, then they'll take the law into their own hands. Usually they'll stamp on someone or kick them or something like this. They do it in rugby as well, but they're flipping clever about it, and they'll wait till they know you're in the wrong place and you can't see it, and then they'll poke them or stick them.
Exactly. Like that, or the wrong side of the ruck or whatever. And that's the thing.
They wait until like they can see the person who they know who did it, and they think, well, I'm going to tackle you now. I'm going to drop you on your head or something like that. So they get revenge in another way. Whereas in football, it's a bit more difficult because you're not supposed to kick people in football. So
no. But I mean, and it's like obviously, we spend a lot of time talking to ex-football players and reminiscing about, the old days and stuff like that. And it does seem that, a lot of those players wouldn't have basically had much of a career if they were playing now. Basically.
I think a lot of them would have spent a lot of time watching.
You think with VAR and whatnot.
Razor Ruddock or Vinnie Jones or someone like that. I mean, I'm sure they'd have been clever enough to sort of adapt their game a little bit and do stuff that they needed to do because they were all quality players. But I think if we'd like you say, like the VAR and things like this, if it was something off the ball, they might well get picked up for it. But I suppose in football, you still rely on stuff being seen in the moment.
Yes, true.
You don't like where in rugby, if something happens 100 meters away from where the game's going on, if a punch up starts off with 2 players and it's off the ball, even if the ref hasn't seen it, they'll punish them for it the following week. They'll get banned or something like this. Now one guy, he was a top England winger. He got a 12-week ban for sticking his eye in someone's face. In that he's sticking his finger in their eye for eye gouging, and that can get you a 2-year ban if you've done it. There's levels of stuff. And that was off the ball. That he got tackled out of play, and as he stood up, he just put his. Well, I think he don't if it was on purpose, but he basically put his hand on the guy's face, and then he poked him in the eye with his thumb or something like this. Following week, he'd been given a 6 or 7 week ban for it. Whereas in football, if the ref doesn't clock it straight away, then that's basically it. It's you get away. You sort of get away with it.
You do.
And I wonder whether football would benefit from a bit of kind of retrospective action. Sometimes
I think so,
I know people have talked about that for years about whether players should get punished for stuff that happens off the ball, because otherwise they can just that's then when you get the ref's not seen it, and I'm going to have to deal with you myself later on. And then you get those flare ups. That's why they say football refs always have to have eyes in the back of their head, because you've got to watch what's going on, what's been going on way away when the ball's gone.
Yeah, of course. And you're right. I think maybe with, we had a lot of, coverage around, that week where we had like 3 or 4 penalties or dives which shouldn't have happened, and people seem to be getting shot by snipers and stuff like that. And I think there needs to be some more, and they used to do it. I mean, I remember Lanzini was, I think they've only banned or given bans to 2 people. Lanzini was one of the couple of game gap ban, and someone else. And I think it's, if they started doing that again, people would stop doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, it's the same as everything, really. It's like, it's like, as you said, eye gouging and stuff. Then, he's got banned. Oh, maybe I'll stop doing it for a few months until that dies down. And then, so at least it's sort of, we had that period of sort of like easing off a little bit. But no, I think there needs to be a lot more of that. And I think VAR, it's been great, but it's opened up more questions, so like the discrepancies and when something's offside. Is it, a centimetre? Well, technically that should be offside. And it's like, this, and then there's, we should be a tolerance. Okay, well, what's the tolerance? So many questions. And that's what makes football great, because, you can talk about those types of things. Like we've spoken a lot for the last 40 minutes about talking about stuff like that, isn't it?
Well, that's like the thing with football. I was like, I remember I passed it to someone else because I'm a bit sad. I like looking at numbers and data sometimes. And like the football laws, there's only 17 football laws. But in the book, when you look at it, I thought I'd do a word count, and there's about 30,000 words in the football law book. Whereas you go to rugby, it's got 22 laws, but it's only got 24,000 words. These little pictures, because obviously sometimes players are a bit knocked in the head, maybe, and they have to look at pictures to understand what they're doing. But I think what from all the training that I've done, because we have like regular a month when it's regular season, it's going on. We have like monthly meetings, and we'll look at specific stuff. And one thing that's always really stuck with me, from a guy who's now kind of like second tier semi-professional referee, he said, thing with rugby is that when you look at a decision, it's either this or this. It's like there's never kind of like 4 or 5 different choices. Was it foul play? Yes or no? Did this happen? Yes or no? And then you end up with a decision at the end of it. You've never got more than about 2 or 3 choices to make. Whereas in football, if you get a foul, you've instantly got to decide careless, reckless, excessive force, and then you've got to go, well, where is it on the pitch? Is there going to be? Could there be a goal? Is it breaking up a promising attack? And then you've got to go, where's the guy already had? How many fouls has the guy already had? And you've got to make a Premiership referee has got to make those decisions in like a split second. When it becomes quite instinctive once you've done that. But when those guys in the Premiership have been refereeing for 30 years, most of them at least. About 30 years would be about as long as you referee, I suppose. And they've done thousands and thousands of games, but you've got so many potential choices you can make as a referee about what's happened. And even with a foul, I mean, you can almost kick someone in the head. If you swing your leg at them to try and go for a bouncing ball, but you miss, then that's only that's not potentially even a free kick. You might just play on, and then once you played advantage, then you just carry on with it. That's it. It's gone. And when I'm a Leyton Orient fan, so I apologise. I'm from the noisy neighbours just across the A12, and I took my daughter to go and see the O's last year, and there was the people sat around me were getting quite cross with the referee. And at one point, he played an advantage for Orient. We came up the pitch about 50 yards, and then we lost the ball, and then he blew for a free kick. And he took it back because there wasn't an advantage. And they were like, what's he doing? He can't take it back there. I was like, no, he's given us the free kick because we didn't get anything from that because our player booted the ball away, whatever it was. And they were like, right, okay, yeah, fair. Oh, well done, ref. A little bit of education maybe needs to go on here, but you don't often see like a referee once they stick their arms out for advantage and they go for it. That's it. You're not sort of in rugby. You can play an advantage for like a minute, and if nothing actually then comes of it, you just come back. Whereas in football, if you go on for a minute, the ball could be anywhere, couldn't it? But you can't. You've got to kind of in football. I think as the referee, you've got to be a lot braver than you have in rugby. You just go for it. And I think I keep going back to Mike Dean, but I think he's a great example of that. because he loves football. There's that video of him at Tranmere when he's up on the terrace and he's going absolutely mental, but he just doesn't care. And I think he sort of plays up to it a little bit, but he obviously just doesn't give a hoot what the players think of a decision, which you obviously got to do. But I think he must get himself into that mindset, because when you see interviews with him, he seems like the most happy-go-lucky, nice guy, bit of a clown almost. But once he steps on the pitch, you obviously have to switch yourself on into that mindset of, I'm out here for 90 minutes. This is not life, and whatever happens, it just happens. And I don't care if these guys don't like what I say. They get paid 10 times as much as I earn for this.
Exactly.
So in a week or in a month, whatever. So who cares?
It's true.
Yeah, I don't know. It must be the sort of thought.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think and also there's so many. That's why I like. That's why the rules of rugby. Yes, there's more of them, but you're right. If someone does a not intentional naughty tackle, but if it's a naughty tackle, then it's a penalty. And as you said, then it could be a sin bin, because it is still a naughty tackle if the intention was there or not. And I think that's the trouble with football is, as you said, there's so many grey areas, and there's so referees are processing so many variables in their head at the same time that there's just no consistency. Whereas rugby, I think from ref to ref, you may have a slight difference in terms of interpretation, but there's a consistent approach. And when they bring in a new rule, as you said, throughout the year, usually might be like scrummaging or whatever, or binding, then it's applied across the board. And then it's as you said, they do their refresher courses and new rules, and they're not afraid to change the rules if something's not working throughout the year. Do you know what I mean? Where football
they've done that constantly. There was a game a couple of years, Italy against England, and Italy were doing something cheeky.
Like stand in front of it,
So a fortnight later, there was a rule change, and that was instant, immediately, all levels of the game. So I then had to go and explain to a team I was playing against. I went, "Are you going to do like Italy did a couple of weeks ago?" And they went, "Well, we weren't, but now we might try it, see if you paid attention." So I think, so I was like, "Oh, brilliant." But in football, I don't. Obviously, it's a massive game. You've got rugby. Really, you've only got you've got 20 nations that really have got professional setups. Whereas in football, it's every country in the world, isn't it? For instance, like North Korea, and even they've got a football team. And you can't. I suppose it takes years to get revisions through. And you look at you can go on the IFAB website, which I've done not often. I'm not that much of a geek. But you look at the list of proposed law changes, and there'll be 20 or 30, and then they narrow it down to 10, and then they get it down to 2, and then they do one that's going to go to a trial in some leagues, and then they go, "It didn't work, we bin it." And you think, you got to, sometimes these things take, like with VAR, been going for 2 years. It's going to take a decade. I don't think you'll see
at least,
until the end of until 2030, basically. And in rugby, they'll do things and they'll change them again. They're not afraid to keep changing the laws. Whereas, because it's always been quite a complicated sport. To someone who watches it, they think, "What the hell's going on? There's just a load of people laying on the floor having a cuddle." Whereas in football, it's dead simple, isn't it? You kick a round thing in a box, and you don't kick the other players who are in the same colour shirt as you. That's basically the run of it, isn't it? And anything, I suppose, anything that changes that or waters it down, it kind of might take away from kids in the playground type thing. And that's in essence, that's what it's all about. It's I think, like you say, you got so many people to try and get through, and also then you get to that point where I can't think of a specific example. But you bring in a rule that might suit one style of play, but South American football doesn't like it, so they block bringing in that particular rule, or whatever else. It's because it's a massive game, and trying to affect change in that sense, I suppose, is so much more difficult. So I feel sorry for the people who are trying to make that change. But it's a big commercial product, isn't it? You want to make sure that you're entertaining people and having exciting football. And plenty to talk about. So, which is, we've talked for almost an hour about a few little things.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of it. And that's why I like these. That's why I said to you before, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we'll end up chatting for 50 minutes, and we've chatted 50 minutes, Dan. I mean, it's been great. Anyway, it's been lovely chatting to you, mate. And obviously,
you,
it's been and 20 years on. Who knows? Another 20
Yeah.
years. It's like we interviewed Adam Frankel, and
Yeah.
Christ, he's in Dallas.
Yeah.
I love it.
And he's been, he's lived through a mad last few years as well.
Oh,
but that's again
mental.
another whole other podcast on life in
Mental.
America.
But he's on the men now, so that's good, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But
crazy.
Because also it's like it's always where it's that when something happens to someone heart attacks and things like happen to everyone all over every day. But when it happens to someone it's like shit, man. But it's lucky it's all sorted. But anyway. Dan, it's been lovely. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Very
it's been
welcome.
lovely.
I'm honoured to have been on such a well-known and prestigious podcast with the likes of you and all those other West Ham amazing people. So
don't be silly. I think it's really interesting to think about football a bit more sort of particularly from the referee's perspective, because they're people as well, It's like, I think it's almost like a referee's job. It's a bit like a goalkeeper, in that if you don't notice them, they've done a good job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's like, the less you have to do, the better you've done sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is bizarre,
it's funny, but that's where I used to play. I must have been set up for it, but who knows?
For a young career. But anyway. And obviously thank you to everyone for watching as well. As always, like, share, subscribe. And until next time, from myself and Dan, take care, everyone.
Thanks very much. Take care, everybody.
Wash those hands and come your wines. See you ever. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers.